Think back to the last time you felt overwhelmed. It might be earlier today. It might, for me, it's a little bit ago, right before we started this big conference. I noticed that my room here was filling with smoke and that my 3D print was basically on fire right as we started here. And I was feeling a little overwhelmed at that moment. And in that moment, if you felt that overwhelmed, if anybody has ever had somebody come up to them and say, now just calm down. You ever had somebody tell you that in that moment? How well did that work? Did you calm down? No, absolutely not. Never in the history of calming down has anybody ever calmed down being told to calm down. How many of us, though, have asked others to calm down when they're, I have, I'm like, just relax, calm down when they're in it? That's not how we do it. That's a very upstairs sort of brain. That's a very cognitive, I can decide to, when I am in the fight, flight, or freeze moment, I'm not in that place where I can make oh yeah, all I gotta do is just relax now. I'm in it and I can't calm down. Those strategies that we tell people to practice are not able to be accessed. And if you look at a lot of those strategies that we give one another in these trauma-informed and resilience-building conferences, they're upstairs strategies, not downstairs strategies. I'm gonna talk today about downstairs strategies. What do we do when we're deep in it? How do we come back online? So think back to that time you're feeling overwhelmed. What was happening inside you? Let's think about, what were those sensations? We heard that Australian guy, right? He said, notice the top of your head. What are the sensations? We're going to be talking about sensations today, not feelings, because sensations and feelings are not the same thing, okay? And I'll clarify that in a little bit. So some of the research that's coming out is that when we are feeling a way, as the kids say, feeling some sort of way, that there are sensations of more intensity in our body happening and less sensation in other parts of the body. I call this a heat map, but it's not really heat. It's based on tension that's happening. So if you look at some of these emotions you may be feeling, the bright yellow or the red or the orange, those are where there's more tension, more sensation. And where the blue is where there's less sensation. Not cold necessarily, it could be, but not necessarily. More of a numb. And the dark are where they're neutral, you don't notice it. So think about it, if you're in a neutral, just like a mood, just there, you're probably not thinking about your armpits much, and you're probably not thinking much about anything else in your body. But when you're angry, we feel it in our jaw, and we feel it in our fists, or our hands are stiff, and that's the sensations. This is what we're kind of talking about that's happening in our bodies when we are deep in it. The body is smarter than we are. I'm going to give you two examples that tell us about that. One, the body's smarter than us. How many of us have ever been in an acutely stressful situation where we're like, now we got to be on right now, and we are in it, we deal with it, we're done, the situation is diffused, and then afterward, after it's all over, how many of us have found our bodies shaking like uncontrollably or crying, and you're like, ugh. That's our body's way of releasing stress and tension that built up instantly. Another way that our body is smarter than us, think about it when we start to get sick. I've been using this as an example, and we're in our pandemic right now, but think about this. The virus attacks our body. Our bodies immediately go to work. The body immediately detects it, goes to work, sends the antibodies or the come on, science people, help me with this, the white blood cells out there trying to protect us. And a couple of days in, then we start to notice the runny nose or the cough or our body's already been fighting it for days before we even know that we're sick. Our bodies are smarter than we are. And so we want to stop thinking about things so much and start noticing what our bodies are telling us beyond what we are normally thinking about when we're deep in the stress. So feelings have words. When we're in our amygdala, we don't have words. We just have sensations. So to think about those things. So we notice this, that there's some sort of trigger. Maybe a stranger enters the room, right? And so it's butterflies and tension. We may not realize it, but it happens. And we then are thinking, they might hurt me. And then there's fear. And then we go into our fight, flight, freeze. Oftentimes you and I don't see someone's experiencing anything until they're in their fight, flight, or freeze mode. Meanwhile, the body has been doing things. So if you and I can start to recognize the sensations that are happening in our bodies ahead of time, we might be able to interrupt it before we get to a fight, flight, freeze. This is interesting. Yes. If it is, say yes. Give me a yes. And if it's not, just be gentle. Fight, flight, freeze is what you and I see. And so what are those sensations that we can start to notice and help our students, our clients, our children, our colleagues start to notice so that we can respond to them when we're deep in it? I'm looking at our time, keeping us moving here. I only had something like 400 slides for this. You guys are okay to hang out a little more, right? I'm kidding. Okay, so sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Listen, I'm not a science teacher. I am a little bit of a nerd, but even with this, I get confused. And so I want to give us another 2-minute video, a neuroscience video that tells the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and even I can figure this out. And it matters. It matters because this is where we start to talk about the vagus nerve. You with me? Here we go.
Welcome to 2-Minute Neuroscience, where I simplistically explain neuroscience topics in 2 minutes or less. In this installment, I will discuss the divisions of the nervous system. There are 2 major divisions of the nervous system. The first is the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. The second is the peripheral nervous system, which consists of nerves that run throughout the body. The peripheral nervous system itself is made up of 2 subdivisions. The first is the somatic nervous system, which contains nerves that carry sensory signals from the body to the central nervous system and nerves that carry motor signals from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles. The somatic nervous system is associated with voluntary movement. When you clicked on this video to play it, the signal to depress your finger was sent from your brain to your finger via the somatic nervous system. The second division of the peripheral nervous system is the autonomic nervous system.
And that's the
autonomic nervous system is sometimes called the involuntary nervous system,
Here we go.
and it is involved in regulating the internal environment of the body. It carries signals from internal organs to the central nervous system, and from the central nervous system to the internal organs. In this way, it is involved in regulating things like digestion and heartbeat, which are generally outside the realm of conscious control. The autonomic nervous system can be further subdivided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers. The sympathetic nervous system plays a large role in stimulating and mobilizing energy resources, while the parasympathetic nervous system acts to conserve energy.
The accelerator
For
and the
example,
brake.
if you're in a frightening situation, the sympathetic nervous system will cause your heart rate to increase, your blood pressure to increase, and your sweat glands to be stimulated.
The accelerator.
If you're eating a meal, however, and are not frightened, your parasympathetic nervous system will stimulate digestion, increase salivation, and slow your heart rate. Due to these functions, the sympathetic nervous system is often described as being involved in fight or flight responses, while the parasympathetic nervous system is described as being involved in rest and digest responses.
So in a healthy, regulated individual, those 2 sides, the accelerator and the brake, can help regulate and keep ourselves in normal functioning mode. That's what we say. Those things are working in balance when we say someone's regulated. When someone's dysregulated, they either have the brakes full on and aren't moving, freeze, or they are in the fight or flight with the accelerator dead on. So how do we reset that nervous system that we really don't have control over? The parasympathetic, look at this. It controls the eyes, the salivation, here's the vagus nerve that controls all of these things. And the only one thing out of all of that you and I can consciously control is the lungs. We can't say heart beat slower. We can't say eyes constrict and dilate. We can't do that. It won't do it. But we can say breathe long and slow. And that's why we say breathing. That's where it starts. But there are other things we can do too. Vagus nerve 101. When I say Vegas, I don't mean Vegas, y'all. I mean Vegas. So if you want to grab a quick screenshot here, I'm going to move past this real fast because this is just some details. You can also straight Google vagus nerve, and they will give you more information than you and I probably need to know for everyday practice. So I'm moving on. It's really about fight, flight, freeze. And remember the sensations? Think about the things that are the parts of our body that are controlled through the vagus nerve. What do we do with this information? That's important. I'm skipping that video because she's kind of a hippy-dippy, kind of funny. We can work with those sensations in a way that's counter to what the vagus is doing when it's dysregulated. Let's talk. So if I'm feeling a sensation of numbness in my hands, clapping, rubbing on something rough, that's going to work, right? But if I'm angry and I've got a lot of tension and sensation in my hand, do I want to bring sensation to the hand, or do I want to release sensation from the hand? I want to release it. So how would we do that? I wouldn't get it by clapping my hands and rubbing something sensory rough. I would want to have something else. So we're going to think about these counter pieces. Ready? Come with me on this. A lot of this stuff that I'm going to share with you here is from the Trauma Resource Institute, their community resilience model. I got to spend some time in North Carolina and got some training with them and for them. Did I say for them? With them and from them, alongside them. And one of the things that they share with us is to think about when we're in our resilience zone, we're in a flow. We're not too high or too low, not too much accelerator, not too brakes. But when things start to go wonky, we get pushed either to acceleration or to braking. And that's where we start to see behaviors and responses when we are stuck on some sort of mode. And so the words that we want to look for, the words that we want to teach ourselves, our clients, our students, our colleagues, are to use these sorts of words. And we want to start to look for these sorts of words when they're describing what's happening in their body. And we can ask them where this is happening. We can then compare that to our heat maps and start to think about what we might want to do in response. Folks, I am literally, not literally, nearly literally, just showing you a little bit of ankle here, lifting up my skirt and showing the ankle. There's so much more depth to this that I knew that in a virtual session, we could never really go fully deep. But this is some pieces I want us to start thinking about. I'm leaving you with more information in a moment. That when we're under trauma and stress, we'll find that we have constricted breath and or rapid heartbeat and or tense muscles and or pain or numbness. And that what we want to do is get toward this resiliency piece. So one of the ways that we want to release that is through this. So if I have numbness, how do I bring in vibration and tingling to get to the calmness? When I have pain, how do I bring heat and warmth to feel more grounded? Tense muscles, burping and yawning. I'm going to go ahead and say this because I know I have some teachers in the room. Do you have a kid who is constantly burping or yawning in ways that are just like, are you kidding me? That is disgusting. Or that is, I taught middle school and high school, right? And now that I've learned some of this, I know that some of those kids come from really hard places. And it was almost in the mornings where they were doing that. And I've found that this is one of the ways that our body releases that stress that they may have had that morning. And when they came into my place, my classroom, which was safe, their body was releasing that tension. They didn't know it. And now that I look back and I think maybe they are. And what did I do? I yelled at them. Knock that off. That's so gross. I'm going to send you to the office if you don't. I'm just saying ponder it and see, think about if that's happening. This might be a piece. Another way we can help to reset when we know when we ourselves are feeling dysregulated. Earlier, last week or a week before, I called it, I felt the shadow. The shadow was on me. I'm down here in my basement here 10, 12 hours a day. I just felt the shadow on me. And so there are things that I knew that I could try that would get me snapped out of it. Number one, positive social relationships. Who can I connect with and just be with virtually or chat with or talk with and tell some funny, silly, stupid jokes and laugh with? Also cold. Can I run cold water on my wrists? Maybe I need more. Maybe at the end of the day, or I can shower, and at the end of my shower, I turn it down to where it's just cold water on me. In the winter, go outside, stomp my feet around without a coat for a little bit, get that cold shock. It helps to reset the nervous system. I'm not a scientist here. I'm just reading what science has been telling us about this. Gargling. I would do that. No, I wouldn't. I would try this with my students or someone. See, can we have a gargling contest? Guys, try this, right? So if I could gargle, see who can gargle the longest. Can you go 10 seconds if you're feeling? What that vibration is doing is stimulating that vagus nerve that runs down the back of our throat. Singing, chanting, massage, laughter, same thing. Breathing deeply This is why we say to breathe deeply, because the lungs are connected with the vagus nerve. Exercise. These are things that we can try. If you have heard at least one thing that you know that you might want to try for yourself, or you might want to try with someone in your household, drop that in the chat. What is the thing that you might try tonight or tomorrow that might be interesting? Thanks, by the way. The gargling. And it's so fun for kids, right? Just water, and you might cough and it'll be funny and it'll be gross, and do it outside. The singing helps me so much. I am all about singing, and I never realized that this was a thing. I just knew that it made me feel good in hard times, right? I see you, Stacy. Thank you. You're giving us a countdown, man. You're making us nervous. You see my next slide, right? So, guys, this is, if you're a journaler, someone who journals, think about this. Think about tracking, noticing the sensations in your body. And I know it says resource intensification. I'm going to talk about that in my last session today, of how we can start to track those sensations and then bring up another way to get ourselves back online. So what's been happening? What will try journaling some of the things that you try and what works and what doesn't. Folks, this is me. I appreciate you being here. Hold on though, I got some more information that you might want to know. If you want more information about this, I told you I'd leave you with some places to go. Go to the resilience-coaching.ESSDACK.org. You can grab a picture of this if you want to, or Stacy maybe can type it in quickly into the chat. I'm sorry, Stacy, we didn't talk about that. Or you can connect with us on Facebook. I'm the only Ginger Lewman in the world, thank goodness. There's no other one, yay. And you can connect with me there, or you can find us on Facebook with the, it's called the ESSDACK Resilience Team. If you go to Facebook and search that, you'll be connected with all of us right there. And we do have more learning opportunities coming up. Feel free to jump in there and check that out if you want to. And then lastly, thank you guys for being here. If you picked up something, at least one thing, give me, I would say a thumbs up, but we don't do that here. So an X, or just type a letter in before you head out. And that gives me feedback that it was something that was important to you, and I appreciate your time. Otherwise, I'll see you back in the main room here in just a moment.